thought Bret the Hitman would lay back.
There is a moment, somewhere in the back of Bret Hart's memory, when he made a decision, not to be a better wrestler, not to win more championships, but to decide exactly what kind of professional he was going to be. The kind who never, under any circumstances, legitimately hurt the person across the ring from him. The kind who showed up every single night, for nearly 300 nights a year across 14 years, and missed almost none of them. The kind who believed that professional wrestling, when done correctly, was closer to art than most people would ever admit. That code was the foundation of everything Bret Hart built. And the people who violated it, whether through physical recklessness, political sabotage, or outright incompetence, he never forgot them. So how does a man who spent his entire career protecting opponents end up with a list this long? How does someone who prided himself on never sending a single opponent home genuinely injured, who voluntarily put over younger talent again and again, accumulate this much documented, long-running, publicly stated rage? The answer is that the wrestling business is full of people who don't share the code, and Bret Hart is constitutionally incapable of pretending otherwise. Let's go back to the beginning. Before Bret Hart was a world champion, before the Hitman was a household name, he was watching the men around him closely. And one of the things he noticed early was the difference between wrestlers who could actually work and wrestlers who simply looked like they could. The Ultimate Warrior was the most extreme version of that second category. Huge, charismatic in a wild, untrained way, pushed into the biggest main events the business had to offer, and delivering almost nothing in Bret's estimation between the ropes. Warrior worked stiff, worked uncooperatively, and moved through feuds like a man collecting a paycheck rather than practicing a craft. He gave almost nothing back to the people trying to have a real match with him. For Bret, that was already a violation. But what turned his contempt into something deeper was the character Warrior projected versus the man Hart said he actually was. Phony hero were the words. Coward was another. And the enduring proof in Bret's view is the simplest kind. Look at who wrestlers of today actually imitate. Not Hogan, not the Warrior. Nobody is running the ropes trying to capture that legacy. The workers study Bret Hart, Curt Hennig, Dynamite Kid, Owen Hart. The silence around the Warrior's influence tells you everything about what those performances actually were worth. But if the Warrior represented a philosophical failure, Hulk Hogan represented something far more personal. April 4th, 1993, WrestleMania 9 at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Bret Hart walked in as WWF champion and walked out without the title after losing to Yokozuna in roughly 9 minutes. That was painful enough. But then Hulk Hogan stepped through the curtain, accepted a challenge from Fuji, and pinned Yokozuna in 22 seconds to become champion in a match nobody had been told was happening. On the grandest stage in professional wrestling, Bret Hart had been turned into a prop in someone else's story. What followed made it worse. There were conversations, understood by Bret as commitments, that Hogan would drop the title back to him, that the moment taken at WrestleMania 9 would eventually be made right. Instead, Hogan dropped the belt to Yokozuna at King of the Ring in June, and Bret spent SummerSlam 1993 in a mid-card feud with Jerry Lawler, while Lex Luger got the main event spotlight. Hogan and Vince have both told versions of the story that contradict Bret's, but Bret's conclusion has never changed. Hogan looked out for one person at all times. The second Bret became champion. He was a threat, and Hogan acted accordingly. He was, in Hart's own words from recent interviews, a backstabbing, knife-wielding piece of garbage who never looked out for anyone but himself. Then came the debate over in-ring philosophy, and Ric Flair. Flair operated from the opposite end of everything Hart believed, where Bret constructed each match specifically for that night and that opponent. Flair ran the same routine. Every building, every market, every night. Hart's father Stu had spotted it decades earlier and given it a name, Routine Man. The chops were the other problem. Flair's signature chest slaps, so distinctive they became iconic, left real bruising on real people, in Bret's framework. That was a fundamental violation. You're not supposed to hurt your opponent, not even a little. Not even if it looks good. Chops hurt. Going against everything logical in the business was not a feature, it was a flaw. Flair's response was characteristic. In his world, Hart was a nobody, a pissant in the history of wrestling who couldn't draw a dime when they gave him the belt and who they couldn't wait to move away from. Two completely irreconcilable visions of the job, aired publicly and bitterly, in books and interviews, across 2 decades. November 9, 1997, the Survivor Series. Molson Center, Montreal, Bret Hart against Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. The match was designed to end in a disqualification so Bret could leave the company with the title intact before his contract expired and he moved to WCW. That was the agreed plan. The title went to Michaels. Bret Hart had been deceived in his final night with a company he had served for 14 years. In the room where the plan was formed, Triple H had been the one to say it clearly. If Bret won't do business, we'll do business for him. That line was enough. But that reconciliation had a defined boundary. Triple H was not part of it. He was phony, Hart has said recently. He married into the McMahon family and built his power through corporate leverage, not through anything he could actually demonstrate between the ropes. Bret wished publicly that Triple H had been in the dressing room when he found Vince after Montreal. The implication needed no elaboration. From Montreal, Bret moved to WCW and directly into Eric Bischoff. Bischoff had offered the contract, roughly $2.5 million per year, a lighter schedule, some creative control, a genuine lifeline after the most humiliating night of Bret's professional career. What he did not provide was any coherent use of the man he'd signed. Bret would fly to cities, arrive ready to work, and be told he wasn't needed that night. The booking was chaotic and inconsistent, the storytelling directionless, and the company that had paid top dollar for Bret Hart seemed to have no clear idea why. The worst maggot who ever got into wrestling, Hart has called him. The single most destructive force the industry had seen. Not because he set out to destroy it, but because sheer incompetence combined with unchecked ego produced the same result. When WCW collapsed, Bischoff eliminated the only real competitive structure the wrestling business had and took away every performer's contract leverage with it. Bischoff's counter was equally blunt. Hart was miserable, showed up looking unprepared, dragged energy out of every environment he entered, and needed someone to blame because that was how he processed life. Whiny bitch was the phrase that circulated. Both men have been remarkably consistent in their contempt for each other. But even Bischoff's failures couldn't compete with what happened on December 19, 1999, at Starrcade inside the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. Bret Hart was WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Bill Goldberg was the challenger. During the match, Goldberg delivered a mule kick that connected directly with the side of Hart's head. Bret said later it felt like someone had chopped him across the skull with a hockey stick. He finished the match. He kept working in the weeks that followed. The full weight of the damage only became apparent after it had already accumulated beyond the point of return. Post-concussion syndrome. Persistent symptoms. The career was over. Bret vacated the WCW title in January 2000. And in the summer of 2002, after a bicycle accident in Calgary sent his head into pavement, he suffered a stroke that left him with left-side paralysis and cost him months of rehabilitation. Bret has maintained that the concussion from Starrcade was connected to everything that followed. The specialist he saw after the kick had already told him the wrestling career was most likely finished. One of the last things he had said to Goldberg before they walked through the curtain that night was simple: "Don't hurt me." $16 million, Hart has estimated, was the cost of that kick. His career, his health, his ability to do the only thing he had ever wanted to do at the highest level. Goldberg has called it the biggest mistake of his life. He has apologized repeatedly over many years and stated without ambiguity that there was no malice. But in 2022, he drew the line. He was done saying sorry. If Bret couldn't accept the apology, then that was simply where they stood. In Bret's framework, intent didn't change the outcome. The harm was real. The result was permanent. And that, he has explained plainly, is the entire point of the code. In professional wrestling, anytime someone does something to you that genuinely hurts, they are doing it wrong. That is Goldberg wrestling, not the real thing. The same standard reached all the way forward to Seth Rollins and a string of high-profile injuries between 2015 and 2016. A knee to John Cena's face on Raw in July 2015 broke Cena's nose mid-match. A powerbomb into the turnbuckle at Night of Champions in September 2015 left Sting with cervical damage that effectively ended his WWE career, and a running powerbomb into the ringside barricade at SummerSlam in August 2016 tore Finn Balor's shoulder apart badly enough that Balor was forced to vacate the Universal Championship the following night, less than 24 hours after winning it for the first time. Bret's verdict was public and immediate: reckless and unprofessional. No amount of athleticism compensates for sending the people you're supposed to protect home genuinely injured. That is the disqualifying act. After the Cena incident, Bret went further. If someone had kneed him in the face like that, he said, he would have been waiting for them in the back dressing room with a baseball bat. That is the thread running through every name on this list, from the Warrior all the way to Rollins across more than 30 years of documented grievances. Bret Hart built his entire identity as a professional on 3 principles that never bent. Protect your opponent, honor your schedule, respect the craft. The men who broke those rules, whether through carelessness inside the ropes, political manipulation backstage, or incompetent executive decisions, found out the same thing. Bret Hart's memory is long. His standards are exact, and his forgiveness, on the rare occasions it has come, has to be genuinely earned. Shawn Michaels earned it, 13 years later, on live television, in front of the world. The others are still waiting.